Hello, everybody. Myron Medcalf with the Marianne Key Book Club. And this edition of our author spotlight is with the great Dr. Artika Tyner. When I go through your bio, Dr. Tyner, you have like 10 jobs and positions. You really are doing everything. And it's amazing to be with you. So thank you for joining us for this session.
Thank you for the invitation. Honored to be here.
Yeah. Well, you've done some incredible work. You've written scholarly books that are really advanced, but you also did some great work with children's books. And Justice Makes a Difference it's been a book I've had my eye on for a long time because obviously, as we talk about social justice and we talk about progress, I always think, okay, what kind of messages are we sending to the youth? And you have this incredible character, Justice, who has this great relationship with her grandmother. Where did the idea for this book come from?
This book is semi-autobiographical. As
Okay.
you can see, that's young Dr. Tyner.
Yeah.
And Citizen of the Week photo just with the superhero cape. And of course, the direct likeness of the grandmother is my grandmother, Nellie Lightfoot, who really inspired my work. As a young girl, I watched her serve in every capacity of the word to serve those who are homeless, those who are in need, in prison, going to the hospital. She was everywhere doing everything for the cause of healing humanity in some tangible ways. And you couldn't help but to be inspired. But the one thing that we shared as a special pastime is buying books. So that's why I had the idea of bringing it together, the lessons that young people can learn from reading that can help motivate them within their own leadership.
What I love is that grandmother relationship, with her granddaughter. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I tried to get next to my grandmother whenever I could, just for that wisdom. How important is it, especially for today's generation, to capture some of that knowledge and wisdom from their elders?
It's often overlooked because most of our relationships, of course, are with technology, and it's a text message or, because I remember my grandparents used to say, just call me. And I go, oh, okay, I got it. And then so just come by. So I believe that a part of it, if we're not careful, we'll miss those opportunities. Because one of the things that my bishop taught me, because I oftentimes tell people, when you see me, you see a reflection of everyone that poured into my life. You see Justice Allen Page, who provided my first scholarship. Wow. Gave me that golden ticket to let me know that college was possible as a first generation student. You see Judge LeJune Lang, who told me, make sure you have your passport. And I'm like, Judge Lang, I barely have enough money to buy school books. But little did I know, with my experience in learning Chinese and being in a Chinese language immersion program, I would travel throughout Asia and Africa. I didn't see it, but Judge Lang saw it. So what am I saying? That there are so many things, of course, we can learn through our interactions on social media, through text messaging, through the use of technology. But we cannot forget those tangible things, those words of encouragement. And my bishop taught me this important lesson that I'll never forget, was the importance that everything is not taught, some things are caught. And I was blessed to serve under her leadership, Bishop Dr. Dorothy Blaylark Hill, for almost 20 years. And literally, many people said, well, she's just I was just the assistant. I was just helping, carrying her Bible and doing all those things. But I learned so much in that 20 years. It's grounded me in wisdom and understanding of how to lead and serve in the community.
I'm going to steal that. Some things aren't taught, they're caught. I'm going to take that and give your bishop credit, because that is an incredible phrase. What I love about this book is you have a little girl who wants to make this big difference. And I think about that with all of us who are in social justice work, who are trying to figure out, okay, how do I leave my mark? I think about that, honestly. Am I doing anything that's making a difference? And you think about it as sort of this mountain in front of you. Whereas her grandmother tells her, no, everything makes a difference. Any effort you make. How important is that message, especially the young people, to understand how they can make a difference, even if it doesn't feel like it's this monumental effort?
Of course, I think about Dr. King as soon as I hear you leading up to this question, that he talked about how the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. But then former President Barack Obama added another element. when he said that it also requires those benders. So our day-to-day interactions, our day-to-day service is a part of bending that arc. Young Justice learns that lesson. Her grandma teaches her that you're never too young to make a difference. She starts off not far away in someone else's community. I wanted to also ground her in lessons she could learn in her own community by
Mm,
creating the community garden, by going to school
mm,
and learning more about Shirley Chisholm and that women could
yeah,
become president. All those pieces I wanted us to do what Brian Stevenson talks about. So I hope everyone's getting a hint now. I'm an avid reader in his book,
yeah.
Just Mercy, on how to get proximate to the issues. So that's what Young Justice learned that lesson from Brian Stevenson, that you don't have to look too far. You can look in your own neighborhood, your own community, get started where you are, and we all can become those benders of the arc of the moral universe.
I love that your grandmother has this library of books, and Justice has access to this, and she says something that is really profound. She says, "Hey, I want to travel the world," and the grandmother says, "I've been outside of St. Paul. However, I have traveled the world through
Yeah.
books." How do we get more young people to embrace the value of reading and learning and just the possibilities attached to reading and the experiences attached to that?
Of course, that's why I created the nonprofit Planting People Growing Justice Leadership Institute, because I wanted to share that gift of reading in some tangible ways. And what better way to do that is than hosting programmings in partnership with the library to make the library a home. It was a home to me. Of course, there's my house, the church, the schoolhouse, and the library. So it was in my top 5 list. So when I think about that experience, I want to reignite a passion and an invitation to say the library is your home. Just like when I do public policy work and we go into the Capitol is the people's house. So is the library. And the powerful part about that, it's more than just books, it's program, support for families, all of these things. So I'm helping to foster that relationship. And we could hold our programming anywhere. But I've been intentional to say that we must have it at the library to build that connectivity. And we also have to be honest with ourselves. We have to make reading cool.
Yeah.
The same way when I go into a classroom right away, when I ask young people what do they want to be when they grow up, they tend to talk about the athletes that they see. They're talking about people that they see on TV that look like the role models, look like the folks that inspire them, the musicians, all those pieces. Why are we not inspiring people around reading? I've yet to hear
Mm.
someone say, "Ooh, I can't wait to be an author one day." Ooh, but it did happen. Oh, last year I was so happy. Little girl said, "I want to be a reader just like you, Dr. Tyner." I said, "A
Wow.
reader?" I was like, "What?" And that was, I think, the greatest measure of success in my life. Around me are all these accolades that get dusty and everything else.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, when that young girl, young Black girl, 6 years old, looked me in the eye and said, "I want to be a reader just like you," I think something inside of me said, wow, we have more work to do, more inspiration to give. And if we can do this, of course, you can still have your dream of becoming an athlete or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
in addition to that, you can take a look, open a book, and open your eyes to the world.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love the image. On the book, I've got 3 daughters, and whenever I fly out of town, there's that big magazine rack at Minneapolis Airport. G Terminal, wherever you go, uh, and I'll always see only one Black face on that magazine rack, and it's usually Oprah Winfrey in her magazine. You don't see a lot of that representation, and I think sometimes too, Dr. Tyner, when we talk about Black history, a lot of that is through the tales of men. It's Martin Luther King, it's Malcolm X, and we don't hear enough about the Black women who have shaped history. And I think that's why this is such a powerful image. It's justice with the cape saying, no, 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 I'm a part of this history as well. How important is that to diversify how we're teaching Black history so that it's not told through a particular lens and we help people understand, especially young people, that there were so many powerful women who made gigantic efforts that changed this world?
I think it's about being intentional in what we're doing and acknowledging that the publishing industry still has plenty of work to do to increase the diversity of their staff, from the copy editors to the illustrators and everyone who's a part of this creative process. Because unless we center the significance of what you just said and set it as a priority, it will never happen. And this is why I also created, I know you said I have 10 jobs. I had to out of necessity. I had to create my own publishing company. Because
Yeah,
let's be
wow.
honest, when I started a decade ago, it wasn't in vogue to do and write diverse books and publish diverse books. I was
Yeah.
told very offensive statements, like I'm not
Mm.
sure if African Americans read. Really? I mean,
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
part of Black book clubs, Black writing
Yeah.
clubs.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to add insult to injury, we're not sure if they have the disposable income to buy books. And
Hmm.
I thought to myself, with $1.4 trillion worth of buying power, you lost an opportunity that I will take from you. And I know
Yeah.
everybody tries to catch up now with some fancy hashtags and different things, but the data will show us quite quickly that there has been a significant decline since the murder of George Floyd
Hmm.
related to the number of Black authors published, Black illustrators who are given that great opportunity to also, because it's not just about the words, you have a very small number of Black illustrators that even illustrate Black books. In fact,
Hmm.
if you're looking at Black authors alone, yes, you saw a dramatic increase during the quote unquote racial reckoning, and that declined again. But at the same time, even with that increase, less than half of those books were written by Black authors. So
Yeah.
I have the sense, and this is the lesson, I take that lesson from Justice every day, that you can make a difference in big and small ways. That's how I started a publishing company. Clearly, I didn't need one more task or
Yeah.
business venture or vocation. I mean, just being an educator fills my day, being a writer and doing my research. But I knew, and maybe it's that community organizer mantra, got voice, got power.
Hmm.
I needed more tools to use my voice and use my power to even revolutionize the publishing industry. So, without despair, let me tell you about a couple books that we're working on and some of
Yeah.
my recent books. Because
By the way, I went into Garnett Books
yeah,
yesterday, and they told me some Dr. Tyner books were coming. So
yeah,
I look
they
forward to
are.
learning what's in the works.
They are. So one that I'm very excited about, this is a recent release. It's about Annie Turmo Balone. It was published by
Hmm.
Capstone. Annie Turmo Balone, I'd never heard of her. And I'm like,
Hmm.
how could this be? And I actually had the opportunity just a month ago to travel to St. Louis and see the legacy, because that's one word that you use, the
Hmm.
legacy of her work. And what was that legacy? Her social services work still exists today, that there's an Annie Turmo Malone family services building, prominent with her statue, all those pieces in the artwork. Why is that important? Because Annie Turnbull Malone, although we don't know her story, she was one of the first self-made millionaires who happened to be female. Notice I didn't say
Wow.
Black female, female, that she
Wow.
created hair care products and created her own university, Poro College, to train other women like Madam C.J. Walker in hair care
Hmm.
products and entrepreneurship. She sponsored HBCUs for scholarships. She built her own orphanages. Need I go on? Of a woman who trained over probably about 100,000 people, estimated, to help. And I think she might have been a catalyst for, direct sales like Tupperware, Mary
Hmm.
Kay, and Avon. But, people might not ever acknowledge it. But she
Yeah.
created the model for direct customer service and sales. Why is that important? Because she broke every barrier, not just as a
Hmm.
Black person, but also as a woman. So I think those are the type of stories that we don't hear that we need to hear. One more. This one's not even hot off the press yet.
Okay.
You will see it next year. It's about Biddy Mason. Biddy Mason,
Hmm.
I had no idea, never knew anything about Biddy Mason until I started doing the research. Who is Biddy Mason is what I kept thinking as I started to say, and delve deeper. What do I need to learn about her? So this is just a sidebar. Me writing
Hmm.
books is interesting, but the reality of it is I grow in my leadership with each book.
Hmm.
Biddy Mason really resonated with me because one of the first businesses that I opened was a real estate investment firm. And so to see her work just at the tail end of the abolishment of slavery. So she actually,
Hmm.
as an attorney, it's an interesting piece. She brought forth her own petition for freedom. That she was brought into California, that was a free state that entitled
Wow.
her to her freedom, and she won her own freedom in the courts. And I was like, as a lawyer,
Wow.
why do I not know this? But in
Yeah.
addition to that,
Hmm.
once she was free, what did she do? She got to work. And she got to work in the sense of she had already been trained as a midwife. So she started working with a doctor, but she took all of her money and got to work in buying land. And
Wow.
fast forward today, and I was like, why don't we know this story? As many times as I traveled through LAX airport, she owned most of the property in central downtown LA.
Wow. How
These
about
are not
that?
the stories that you hear. And when I
Yeah.
think about Black history being American history, her Biddy Mason story would inspire anyone. So next time
Yeah.
anyone's at LA, go see. There's a whole memorial dedicated to Biddy Mason, and you can see central downtown LA. She owned most of the land.
Wow. Those are amazing tales. We hear some of the stories over and over again. Your Harriet Tubmans, and those are important stories. But I hope, to your point, that there's a greater effort to uncover some of these other incredible people who have also made a gigantic impact. I love this book. Justice makes a difference. I hope people go out and get the book. I think all schools should have it. I definitely read it to my girls. So I'm grateful for this work. Dr. Tyner, thank you, as always, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.